So today what we're going to look at is basically laying a foundation towards your digital content strategy, and which should be the start of your success. As I go through this presentation, please also bear in mind the case study that we've just had. I think we are going to answer through it at the end of the presentation and see how we can be able to help this gentleman achieve success in increasing his following, and also what other platforms can he be able to use in order to be able to convert more sales for his cupcakes. So I think I already did a brief introduction about myself. So in today's agenda, we will be first of all defining and understanding what is digital content and what is strategy. We'll also be looking at an acronym here, which I will speak on it much later in the presentation, and break it down and see how we can be able to have it applied into our digital content strategy. And this is the first W stands for who, we have the what, we have how, when, and also getting to understand our consumer, which is very much important in being able to develop a digital content strategy. And also the case study, which Lillian, I think, has taken us through. So we are just going to answer through it. We're also going to have a Q&A session, should any of you have any questions, so that we will also have that answered in today's session as well. So without any further ado, we're going to get started. So what is digital content? And what is strategy? So digital content can be defined as any form of data available in the digital space that communicates to an online consumer. So when we look at the different digital spaces that we currently have, when you think of Google, when you think of social, that data that is available in those spaces definitely communicates, it either communicates to you or either communicates to another consumer. So what specific content I consume, Lillian consumes something that's very different. And in as much as we are both digital consumers and both are consuming content from the digital space, we both have our own preferences, which I believe also our audience today, Timothy, you also have your own preferences as well. And so that form of communication that's available there, that's what we are calling data, and that's digital content. So when we move on to strategy, we could define that as an actionable plan designed to achieve an overall goal. So we have, of course, goals whenever we're in the digital space, and especially when we come to the case of digital marketing. So there's the business goal that your organization, or probably you as a person, maybe you have some products or services that you're selling. There's the overall goal that you have, and to be able to achieve that, you definitely have to come up with a plan, a set of plan to be able to achieve that as well. And so when you marry these two, that plan that you want to achieve, and especially within the digital space, that is what we're calling a digital content strategy. So you developing a plan in terms of the content that you're going to put up to be able to communicate to your consumers, to be able to achieve an overall goal. An overall goal here could be sales of a product or service. For some people, it could just be a following, like, for instance, the case study that we've just had, whereby he's first looking to increase his following, and then there's an ultimate goal, which I would also want to assume, where he also wants to increase more sales for his cupcakes. And so the goal, so as not to make it too, how do you call it, too ambiguous, it's always good to try and break it down. And I think that's why this gentleman first thought of the fact that he would have to, first of all, increase his following. Thereafter, if he's communicating to the right audience, he will be able to increase his sales. So we look at the acronym that we talked about. That is the who, what, how, and when. So who is our consumer, which is a question that we should always ask ourselves whenever we want to put up any digital content in terms of a strategy to be able to achieve an overall goal. So who is the person who is meant to consume your content? And the later part of the presentation, we're going to be able to see how we can come up with the who. And I think this is a very fundamental point, in that if you miss out on understanding who is the person who is meant to consume your product or service, then it will be very hard for you to be able to speak to the right audience. So speaking to the right audience is something that's very key. And like I said, we're going to further look at that and also break it down and see how we can be able to come up with a buyer persona. So we should very much understand, and like I think I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, that we are focusing on strategy within the digital space. And so we should understand that there are consumers in the digital space, and they're very much connected. If you look at the various platforms or channels in which you can be able to find this digital consumer, they're numerous, and they grow as the day goes by. It's not like previously where we only had the traditional means of consuming media, which is TV, radio, and newspaper, and that's the end of the story, or maybe perhaps a billboard. Right now, as we speak, there's probably something else being developed in another part of the world that is definitely going to enhance our consumer journey and how we consume media. So it's key for us to understand that the consumer is very much connected and is much more savvier than even before. And so we need to come up with strategies that are leveraged to that level in which they are going to consume this product. And I think the audience here can be able to also bear me witness that, unlike previously with the traditional media where, it was just mass marketing, everything is just thrown at you. With digital media, if something, if what you're pushing or promoting does not connect with the current consumer, then you find that immediately they lose interest. And that's what we're talking about, that this person has an array of options to pick from to be able to consume what it is they're looking for. For instance, today, if I'm looking to buy a phone, if I perhaps look at e-commerce website A and find that probably the user journey, or probably even how they're delivering some of the, promotions that are being sent towards me for this phone, I completely switch off and I switch to another e-commerce site. And that is how fast and dynamic this space is. And that's why we really need to be on our toes and understand that we are all connected. So in terms of the who, we are going to look at different aspects in terms of defining who our consumer is. So please bear in mind who stands for who is your consumer, or in other instances, you'll hear of who is your target audience. Who are you targeting to consume your product? So we have exactly who. We also have, so you having to define the age bracket they're in. So there are different areas in which you can be able to break down to be able to understand who your audience is. So in terms of their age, could be in terms of their gender, could be in terms of their location, could be in terms of their behavioral characteristics and lifestyle that they portray for you to be able to understand, does my product actually match their lifestyle and their behavioral characteristics? And out of this, once this is defined and defined clearly, you should be able to have the right audience consuming your product. Remember here, we're not just coming up with digital content just for everyone to consume. You want the right relevant audience to be able to consume your product.